This was actually a gift from my mom. It was a graduation ring for my undergraduate graduation. And it's, as you can see, it's a heart of Palestine. It has the year of my graduation, which exposes my age, but 2004, and my name. So I think, when we talk about that quote, the old will die and the young will forget, this is a symbol that we won't. Like, this love for Palestine will be inherited within our children and my grandchildren, and inshallah, until we do see a free Palestine. There's no other way. Palestine will be free. So my parents are from a village called Ain Yabrud, Qadar Ramallah, which is right outside of Ramallah. As a kid, we went overseas almost every summer. Eventually, I ended up going to high school in Ramallah, the Friends School, graduated from there. And after that, it was visitation over the summers with the connection with extended family. They were born in Palestine, however, they were exiled post-67, and they were not able to, return. And so I was raised as part of the Palestinian diaspora. My parents are from an older generation, the generation that when they first migrated, they went to South America. My dad first migrated to Colombia, then went on to Puerto Rico before eventually finding their way to the United States. And within that journey, 1967 happened, and they were no longer allowed to return to Palestine, and so we became exiled from Palestine, or they became exiled from Palestine, and we grew up in the United States. One of the summers that we were back, I can't even remember, I want to say I was 10 years old. We were actually leaving at night, and we were traveling through our village, and we were hit by stones, actually. Our car was actually hit by stones, and my mom she was hurt very badly. I was sitting right next to her. A stone traveled through the window, kind of broke her jaw at that moment. And then I understood, well, yeah, that's not normal, right? And so we came back to the United States. She went through multiple surgeries to recover from that, but that was an awakening for me to understand that, something is not okay, right? Something is not okay. And obviously, even before that, when we would go, there would be manat tajawwud, where, at that point, the occupation forces would say, nobody's allowed out of their homes, we'd have to stay inside. And so it was apparent, right? Occupation was apparent. It's not something that you can ignore. You know what it is. You know that it is, it's not right. Even as somebody who kind of has that privilege of the American passport, we still were not protected, right? We were not protected. Yeah, so one of the strongest memories I have is as a kid, I want to say, 8 years old, just walking in the streets of Jerusalem. Just the otherworldliness, right? The feeling of otherworldliness in Jerusalem just grips me even as a child, and I think that's very vivid in my memories of Palestine. Also, playing in the olive orchards, in my grandparents' olive orchards is very vivid as well. Just getting tangled, climbing trees, climbing the trees, getting stuck in the trees, and my cousin's kind of laughing at me, kind of saying, "Oh, she's from America, look at her trying to be in nature, I guess." Jerusalem is very significant. As a Muslim, we understand that, it's Isra al-Mi'raj, it's Ula al-Qiblatain. And I understand that as I got older, but as a child, you don't necessarily know the background of it. But I knew that it was very special just because of my mom's dedication of trying, first of all, to get there. Every time we had the chance, we would go to Jerusalem and walk through Jerusalem and go pray. So I knew that it was very special. And just also walking and seeing the bloodstained cobblestones post the first Intifada is also something that sticks into my memory. I didn't really know the significance of that time. I just knew that something big was happening, something tragic, right? I could feel it, right? Even though as a child you might not understand everything, but you know that it is significant, you know that it's important, and you also know that it's something that, as watching my mom love to visit, and just her special prayers there. kind of gave that essence of that, quote, otherworldliness, I guess. After I was married, I lived in Jordan for about 6 years, then we moved back here. And I went back for the first time in 2017 with my children, right? I went back with my own children, and, you know, I was able to travel freely. And I kind of navigated, do I want my children to see the occupation, or do I want to show them Palestine that they will remember, that they love, that they will want to come back to, as opposed to showing them the ugly face of the occupation, right? Like when I went back to Palestine, I was able to travel freely. I had a rental car, you know, I did all of that stuff, and you know, I was on Jewish only roads, right, using that with my passport, but also knowing that, you know, on the other side of that, there's like checkpoints, right? Do I want to expose my children to that, or do I want them to know and love a beautiful Palestine? And I think that was, for me as a parent, right, that was what I had to navigate with, like, how much do I expose them to, right? How much of that trauma do I expose them to? I know that's a very privileged thing to have, right? Because if we were Palestinians in Palestine, like, you don't have that choice, right? And I understand that is, you know, coming from a space of privilege. But again, you know, that's kind of like, how do we instill that love and that dedication and that connection to Palestine? I think that this is something that I struggled with constantly. Like, I'm almost 40 years old, and I've thought about this tremendously. And I think at one point I told myself, you know, home is not a location, right? Like, home is not where I am physically. It is the people that I love that are with me. It is the peace that I have within myself. And I think a part of that comes from just the trauma of living under occupation and understanding occupation and seeing that, but also understanding that we too live on stolen land, right? We are in essence occupiers in a way, right? So can we call this home, right? Even though we want to call it home, even though we want to call Palestine home, right? I cannot travel to Palestine and live in Palestine. So where is home in the end, right? And I think that is something that we as Palestinians in the diaspora living in the United States struggle with often.